We're doing a write shop in a place which you can call middle of nowhere, nowhere to go. Wonderful venue like this, but if you walk out of the campus, there's nothing. So it's not like you're in Hyderabad and let's go see a movie and do some shopping. There's nothing. So what do? You start somewhere in the morning at 8:39, and formally you end up at 6:30. Then in batches, the editor working with that author and this artist working with him, bits and pieces. People continue until 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, depending upon the workload. But nobody complains. So when I say work intensive, it really is work intensive, but very enjoyable. It's flexible. There are repeated presentations that I'll talk about again. There is critiquing of material, which is the most important part of it. And by critiquing, actually, it could be my presentation, but with this critique, everybody else is actually helping me elevate the quality of my paper and saying, you know what, it's a very nice thing. I have a similar experience with the project that we did in Mahbubnagar, where something similar happened, and I hear your story, and I say, can you give me a small paragraph that I can put in a box and add to my paper? So it strengthens what I'm saying, or somebody saying something, So and somebody questioning and saying, this thought is missing. What happened? So this is what happened. So you should include that. So this critiquing process is so important. It actually, at the end, I am the author, but actually everybody else becomes an author because everybody else has helped to elevate the quality of the paper. So that is the most interesting part, critiquing. Substantial review and revision of draft. Schedules are very flexible, and I'll talk about it later. It's very creative, as you have already heard. Allows for new topics, cases to be developed. In being presented, you suddenly realize this presentation is very similar to this presentation. Can we not merge it and make it one paper, and both of you can still be the authors? Or this presentation actually has two very different dimensions. Our suggestion is, which is the suggestion of the floor, why don't you split it into two papers, and it will be very useful because this is also a very important thematic area. So it could be combined, it could be dropped or split into parts. It's very quick and efficient, concentration of authors and production staff, various skills and facilities are provided, allows for substantive inputs, cross-fertilization, sharing of ideas, etc., etc. Now, I've already talked about the value of participation. So it basically takes advantage of the diverse experience and expertise of all present, gives way to sharing of experiences, as I've been repeatedly saying, ensures wider acceptance, wider use, expanded ownership of the materials. And again, I'm saying it serves as a crash course. So basically, if we were to write about a particular technology, we don't want to get into a write shop. We want to get into a write shop, which is basically a workshop, because there are certain conclusions that we as an individual or an organization have not been able to reach, or the conclusion is not substantial. Therefore, we want to come together, debate, discuss, and agree upon. Therefore, it makes sense to come to a write shop. So not every theme, not every topic would be ideally suited for a write shop. Yes, maybe a variant of a write shop or any other form of a documentation, we can still do it individually or as an organization. Okay, this we have talked about. Right. So who are the key players in the write shop? There are participants, but also the authors. There are editors, artists, desktop publishing team, the logistics and the secretariat, the moderators, the technical coordinator, and the workshop coordinator. Now, generally speaking, if there are, say, we're talking about 25 cases, articles, write-up, and let us say this 25 is distributed between 20 authors or 20 participants, some presenting more than one, or some having joint authorships and so on and so forth. Let's say 20 people. The 20 people then are not only participants and authors, they're also the critique and so on and so forth. In some cases, you may want to invite somebody who's not necessarily presenting a paper, but ideally this group should be people who are actually presenting their cases. In many cases, it could be people who themselves cannot write very well, and I'll use some examples later. So let's talk about the participants and authors. What are their roles and responsibilities? Prepare and present their first draft based on the guidelines that was provided to them before they came to the Writeshop. And then, during the presentation, so let's say there are 20 participants. Ideally, let us say we have 4 editors. And when we come to the editors, we'll talk about it. But generally, I would prefer a non-subject matter specialist as an editor, because he or she would be able to say, I don't understand what you're saying actually. Because if a subject matter specialist will say, yeah, I understand what you're saying. But we want it wider. Therefore, we want somebody to be able to say, I don't understand. I understand English. So please say that in English. So let us say there are 4 editors. And let us say 2 or 3 desktop people and maybe 1 or 2 artists. So when I'm presenting a paper, an editor is assigned to me. And so when I present it or read it in the assigned 30 minutes flat, and when after that we get into the 15 minutes of stipulated discussion, which is very structured. It's not like you go on and on. Very specific suggestions, questions, comments, and finish. It's not a lengthy discussion. Right. So my author, my editor and myself, we are taking notes of the suggestions coming where we have agreed. In some, as an author, I can say I don't agree to your suggestion and finish it then and there. And if there's a lot of ladai jhagda, then the moderator takes care of that. So we're taking notes of that. And once that is done, then the team of editor, author actually walks out because it's all fresh in their head. And we sit in a room and say, okay, what was all happening? Okay, I took this note, you took this note, and I give you, they wanted that information. Yeah, I'll write a paragraph as an author, and I'm the editor. They said they didn't understand this paragraph, so I give it everything to the editor, after this 1 hour discussion, and come back as a critique then. So if I'm presenting a paper, it's not more than 5 to 10% of the contribution to the Writeshop. The remaining 90% is actually critiquing and improving other papers. So at any given time, there are never 20 participants sitting there, because the 4 editors and 4 participants are always out. Well, and then if paper number 3 is yours, you leave your work and come back and attend this other presentation as well, as an editor. And then some people who have to write more are also out. So at any given time, if the population is 10 to 12 people, very good. The rest are all working very hard. Right. So this is the role of the participants, which is much more than actually only presenting and improving their paper. Provide constructive criticism and suggestions. And sometimes we'll ask them to take chair as a moderator and make sure that that discussion, the structured discussion, finishes in 15 minutes, because it's all time bound. If you go overboard, then you run into trouble. And there are ways to do it. So the participant is the soldier of this war. It is their experience that is being actually captured and discussed. The editors attend presentations. I've already said what the editors do. Work with assigned authors to revise, edit and rewrite draft materials, and coordinate with artists to develop illustration. And then there is an artist as well. So somebody said, let us have, let us show something which looks like the village you're talking about with this ideal farm and so on and so forth. So the artist captures that idea and said, wow, I'll draw something. Is it something like this? Yeah, that's fine. This is what we actually want. Right. So as I said, I prefer no subject matter specialist. In some cases, we have had people, but the same problem. Like he'll say, hey, I understand what this guy is saying, So Editors can achieve what the authors can never, the simplicity and the layman's language, if you want a wider audience or readership. If your publication is meant for a specific kind of audience, the researcher, the academe, the so and so forth, fine, you determine your editor on that basis. Artists draw illustrations with guidance from authors, revise illustrations, take note of changes. A smart, witty, quick and good artist can make a difference between a very good and an excellent publication. The last Writeshop I conducted was sometime in January, February. And I'll show you the picture of that artist. His name is Neeraj, and I don't know how many of you know him, but he was one of the largest contributors to the Chacha Chaudhary illustration. You know, you remember that Chacha Chaudhary thing. And Neeraj is very smart, and he'd listen to you, close his eyes, and he knows actually. And he's drawing a picture in his mind, and then he puts it on paper. And while people are struggling until 12 at night, by 5 he says, I do not have any work, so I'm going home. And one artist for this entire Writeshop, I don't remember having done that earlier. So, you know, it really makes a difference of how these artists can actually, you know, add to the value of, because an artwork means you have taken out a lot of writing and replaced it with some artwork. You're breaking the monotony of reading. It says it's artwork, visuals, this, that, graphical representation and whatnot. So it's very important to have good artists. DTP, his job is once the design is decided, okay, here is this 20-page paper that was read out, and you know, cutting it short, it comes back down to 8 pages and 3 illustrations or artwork that is given, and this photograph and this and that. The DTP person actually lays it out in the format it is going to be published. It's very important, because so in a typical 6-day Writeshop, the first 4 days are the first draft presentations, the last 2 days is the second draft. So you're actually seeing a version that is going to be published. You can actually visualize the book, and so the DTP person becomes very important, right? You look at the picture and you know what a secretariat and a logistics mean when we're talking about not only board, lodge, stay, travel and whatnot, but one single publication which has to go to 3 different formats, first draft, second draft, third draft, in various stages. Some is sitting with the artist, some is with the DTP, some is with the editor in his room, some is, you know, it's all mad rush. And on top of it, you have all these arrangements to make. So the secretariat or the logistic plays a very important role. Moderators is very important because, as I said, we have gone into workshops and somebody says one sentence and there is a debate that ends, that lasts for maybe 30 minutes. But here we are trying to capture what has been talked about in 30 minutes and say very specific suggestions. And you start from maybe pages or from sections, or say, first let us talk about the length of the paper, 1, 2, 3, going, gone. You know,